The morning began with silence. No alarm, no roommate shuffling around, no sound of students in the hallway. Just silence and the faint warmth of sunlight slipping through half-closed blinds. Ethan stirred awake, groggy from another late night of studying. He expected to see the same dull ceiling of his small college dorm room, the same messy desk piled with books, and maybe the half-empty cup of instant noodles he had forgotten to throw away. But what he saw instead made his heart freeze. Someone was standing by the window. At first he thought it was just a shadow, maybe another student who had walked in by mistake, but then the figure moved, and his breath caught in his throat. It wasn't human. Her skin shimmered faint silver, almost like liquid light running across her arms. Her long hair wasn't dark or brown like any student he had ever met. It glowed, faintly blue, strands lifting gently as if stirred by an invisible breeze. She wore no ordinary clothes, only a flowing fabric that seemed woven from starlight, soft but strange. And then she turned. Her eyes were golden. Not hazel, not brown. Not any shade he could explain. Truly golden, shining like sunlight trapped in a gemstone. Those eyes locked onto him the moment he sat up in bed, and for a heartbeat the whole room felt unreal, like he had stepped into another world. Ethan's voice cracked. "Whoa, what the hell? Who are you?" She flinched. Her hands rose, palms out, almost in surrender. Her voice was soft, trembling. "Do not scream, please, I mean no harm." The words were strange, accented, but clear enough. He shook his head, confused, his heart pounding so hard he thought it would break through his chest. He wanted to believe this was a dream. He wanted to believe he had simply fallen asleep on his books and was imagining this. But the air carried, a faint scent like rain on stone after a storm, sharp and clean. Too real to be a dream. She lowered her hands slowly. "I am sorry. I should not be seen, but..." Her golden eyes softened, almost guilty. "It seems fate has decided otherwise." Ethan swung his legs off the bed, still staring. His room was small and ordinary. 2 beds, 2 desks, 2 wardrobes, posters on the wall, and piles of laundry on his chair. Everything was painfully normal except for her. He rubbed his eyes, whispering, "This isn't possible." But when he opened them again, she was still there, solid, breathing, real. Finally, she spoke again. "My name is Solara." Her voice carried weight, as if the name itself held history. "I am not from this world." The words sank like stones in his mind. Not from this world. Alien. Ethan laughed nervously, though his throat was dry. "Yeah, no kidding." He wanted to keep his voice steady, but inside he was shaking. Solara tilted her head, confused by his sarcasm, but continued. "I was sent here in hiding. Your people think me an exchange student, but the truth is..." Her golden eyes darkened. "I am a daughter of my people's throne, a princess, and there are those who would end me if they find me." The silence that followed was heavy. He could hear his own heartbeat, the faint hum of the dorm refrigerator, the distant chatter of students outside. She was serious, deadly serious. Ethan finally stood up, though his legs felt weak. "Wait, you're saying you're my new roommate?" Solara nodded slowly. He almost laughed again, but the fear and wonder swirling inside him kept it trapped in his throat. The housing office had told him he was getting a new roommate, but he never imagined this. Not a princess, not an alien, not someone whose very presence felt like standing in the middle of a storm and a sunrise at once. She turned back to the window, her voice breaking into something almost fragile. "I did not wish to involve you. Humans. They are not meant for this danger. But fate is cruel." Ethan watched her shoulders tremble under the glow of morning light, and in that moment he saw something beyond her strange beauty. He saw loneliness. He saw fear. And though his mind screamed that this was insane, that none of it made sense, his heart whispered something else, something he didn't expect. He couldn't just let her stand there alone. This was the beginning of something far bigger than he had ever imagined. The first days of living with Solara felt like stepping into a dream Ethan couldn't fully wake from. At times, it felt magical. At other times, it felt terrifying. He had shared dorm rooms before. Every roommate came with quirks, loud music, dirty laundry, too much cologne. But Solara was not just another college student. She was different in every way. She studied everything with wide, curious eyes, as if even the simplest human things were treasures. The buzzing microwave made her flinch the first time, and she stood staring at it for 10 minutes, whispering, "A box that cooks with light. Your world is stranger than mine." Ethan had laughed, though nervously, and showed her how to make instant ramen. She ate it slowly, holding the plastic fork like a sacred tool. When she finished, her golden eyes softened, warm, salty. "But it feels comforting, like a memory I never had." And in that small, odd moment, he realized, beneath her title of princess, beneath her strange beauty and powers, she was still just someone trying to belong. Still, it wasn't easy. Solara did not understand human customs. She walked barefoot in the hallways, ignoring shoes completely. She called professors by their first names, which earned strange looks. She asked questions that made people frown. Why do humans cover their pain with smiles? Why do you laugh when you are sad? Ethan often found himself sighing, trying to explain things that he had never thought about before. Sometimes he grew frustrated, but when he saw her sitting by the window at night whispering words in her own language, her voice carrying sorrow he couldn't understand, his anger melted into sympathy. One night when the stars were bright above the campus, he asked, "Do you miss home?" Solara turned to him, her glowing hair catching the starlight. For a moment she did not answer. Then she whispered, "Every heartbeat. I miss the sound of my rivers. I miss the towers of crystal. I miss the voices of my people. But what I miss most is not feeling alone." Ethan's chest tightened. She had armies and palaces once, but here she was, sitting on a squeaky dorm chair, in a world that didn't even know her name. "You're not alone now," he said, softly. Her golden eyes searched his face as if testing whether those words were truth or kindness. Finally, she nodded, though her lips trembled. "Humans, you care so quickly, even when danger walks beside you." Those words stayed with him long after. Day by day, they found a rhythm. Ethan helped her understand small human things: how to sign up for classes, how to pay with a campus card, how to use Wi-Fi. In return, she taught him fragments of her language, sounds that rolled like music. She showed him small tricks with light, weaving tiny glowing threads between her fingers. Once, when Ethan was stressed before an exam, Solara hummed a song from her home. The melody was soft, rising and falling like the tide. His chest felt lighter, his mind calmer. He had never heard anything so soothing. "Music is healing," she said. "For my people, it carries the heart when words fail." He believed her. But even as their bond grew, shadows lingered. Solara often grew silent when footsteps echoed in the hallway. She always kept her bag close, never letting it out of sight. Sometimes she woke in the middle of the night, gasping as if chased by dreams too heavy to escape. Ethan wanted to ask, but he knew she carried a burden too heavy to share fully. So he stayed by her side quietly, offering what little comfort he could. And Solara began to see something she had never expected. Humans were fragile. Their bodies broke easily. Their lives were short compared to the span of stars. But in that fragility, there was a strength unlike anything she had known. They chose to care, to fight loneliness with laughter, to hold each other even when tomorrow was uncertain. Sometimes, when Ethan wasn't looking, she would watch him and wonder, perhaps this world has more strength than any throne could offer. Their days became stitched together by small kindnesses, small lessons, and the fragile thread of trust. What began as accident, 2 lives thrown into one dorm room, was becoming something neither of them could ignore. It was not just survival anymore. It was connection. And though Solara tried to hide it, she was afraid. because connection meant risk. Connection meant loss. Yet in her heart, a quiet thought grew stronger each day. Maybe, just maybe, this human could be the anchor she had been searching for. Time passed slowly, and yet somehow the strange arrangement between Ethan and Solara began to feel natural. What had once been shock turned into routine, and what had been fear turned into a quiet kind of trust. They ate together, studied side by side, and sometimes walked across campus late at night when the world was calm and the sky was full of stars. To anyone watching, they might have seemed like just two friends sharing a dorm, but beneath the surface their lives were woven with secrets, doubts, and emotions that neither could quite name. Ethan noticed how Solara still kept her guard up, even when she laughed at one of his jokes or tried to mimic his clumsy dance moves when a song played on his laptop. She could laugh, yes, but her eyes never fully lost that shadow of distance. It was as if part of her soul still belonged to a place far away, beyond Earth, beyond his reach. One night he found her sitting cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, hands resting gently on her knees. She was humming in her own language, a melody so haunting it sent shivers down his spine. He sat quietly, not wanting to interrupt, but eventually whispered, "That song, what does it mean?" Solara opened her eyes slowly. "It is an old hymn. In my world, it is sung when one prays for the safe return of those far away. My people sing it for soldiers, travelers, and sometimes for those who will never come back." Her golden eyes softened, and for the first time, Ethan saw tears gathering there. She quickly looked away. "I should not sing it here. It only reminds me of what I lost." Something tugged at his chest. He wanted to comfort her, but words felt clumsy. So he just sat closer, letting the silence between them be his answer. She glanced at him, and a small, grateful smile touched her lips. "Humans, you carry no powers, no crowns, no empires. Yet you sit beside others in their sorrow. That is strength my people often forget." Her words stayed with him for days. Ethan began to notice small changes in himself too. He found himself caring for her in ways he hadn't expected. When she looked tired, he brought her tea. When she looked sad, he tried to make her laugh, even if it meant embarrassing himself. When she stared at the stars, he sat with her, even though he never understood the names she whispered into the night. But with closeness came fear. Solara fought against her own emotions. She had been raised with walls around her heart, taught that a princess must be untouchable, distant, unshaken. Yet Ethan made her laugh. Ethan made her feel safe. And that scared her more than the enemies who hunted her. One evening, as rain tapped softly against the dorm window, Ethan noticed her sitting on the bed, staring at the floor. "You're quiet. Tonight," he said gently. She looked up, and her voice was heavy. "Ethan, you should not grow close to me. I am not safe. My enemies will not stop. If they find me, they will harm anyone beside me." He frowned. "So what? You think I'll just stop being your friend because it's dangerous?" Her eyes glimmered with conflict. "Yes, that is the only way to survive." Ethan leaned forward, his voice steady. "No, that's the way to be alone. And no one should have to carry that alone, not even a princess." For a long moment, silence filled the room, broken only by the rain. Then Solara's shoulders shook and she whispered, "You don't understand. My whole life people only saw the crown, the title, the duty. No one ever chose me. Not me." Her voice cracked. The words seemed to tear something open inside her. Ethan's chest ached. Slowly, he reached out and placed a hand over hers. "I see you. Not a princess, not a crown. Just you." Her golden eyes widened, and for a moment, all her walls seemed to break. A single tear slid down her cheek. She didn't pull away. That night, neither of them said much else. They simply sat together, the storm outside echoing the storm inside. Solara knew she was walking into danger, carrying a destiny too heavy for one person. Ethan knew he was powerless compared to the enemies she spoke of. And yet, in that fragile moment, they found something unshakable. It wasn't love yet. It wasn't even trust fully. It was something smaller but stronger in its own way. Hope. The night was heavy with rain. Drops tapped against the window, streaking the glass in endless rivers. The dorm room smelled faintly of damp clothes and instant coffee. Ethan had been reading, his eyes struggling to focus on his textbook, while Solara sat near the window as she often did, her gaze far away, lost in thoughts of a world beyond Earth. It felt almost peaceful. Almost. But Ethan noticed something strange. Solara's posture was tense. Her golden eyes flicked toward the hallway every few seconds, her body stiff like a hunted animal. "What's wrong?" he asked, lowering his book. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she pressed her hand against the glass, whispering something in her own language. Finally, she said, "They are close. I can feel it." His chest tightened. "Who's close?" Before she could reply, the sound came. Footsteps in the hallway. Heavy. Too heavy for any student. The door shook once, then without warning it burst open. Two tall figures stormed inside, their bodies covered in dark, glimmering armor. Their helmets hissed with strange sounds, and in their hands were weapons that glowed faint red. The air itself seemed to grow, colder in their presence. Ethan froze, his heart hammering. He had seen them before only in Solara's broken stories, half believed until this moment. But now, standing in his dorm room, they were real. Too real. One of them spoke, his voice harsh, through the helmet. "Princess, your hiding ends tonight." Solara's face went pale, but her eyes hardened with defiance. "You will not take me." The second figure laughed darkly. "You have no throne here, no guards, no army, just a human boy. Do you really think he can save you?" Ethan's breath caught. They were right. He was just human. Fragile. Weak. What could he do against armored soldiers from another world? His body screamed at him to run, to hide, to pretend this wasn't happening. But then he looked at Solara. She was standing tall, but he could see the tremor in her hands, the way her chest rose and fell too quickly. She was terrified. And yet, she faced them anyway. Something inside Ethan snapped. He couldn't let her stand alone. "Get away from her," he shouted, his voice breaking. The soldiers turned toward him, almost amused. Ethan's eyes darted around the room. His gaze fell on the metal chair by his desk. Without thinking, he grabbed it and raised it like a weapon. His hands shook, but he held it firm. One of the soldiers tilted his head mockingly. "A chair? You dare challenge us with furniture?" Ethan swallowed hard, his heart pounding in his throat. "If it's all I have, then yes." The soldier moved, first stepping toward him. Ethan swung wildly, the chair crashing against the armored chest with a loud clang. It didn't do much damage, but the sheer force surprised the attacker, making him stumble back. Solara took the chance. She raised her hand and light burst from her palm, striking the soldier and sending him crashing against the wall. But the second soldier was faster. He aimed his weapon and a blast of energy shot forward, striking Solara across the side. She cried out, falling to her knees, her glowing hair dimming as pain rippled through her body. Ethan dropped the chair and ran to her side. "Solara, stay with me," she gasped, her golden eyes dim but still burning with resolve. "Ethan, run. You cannot win." He shook his head fiercely, gripping her hand. "I'm not leaving you. Not now. Not ever." The remaining soldier stepped forward, weapon humming with power. His voice was filled with cruel satisfaction. "Then you will die beside her, human." Ethan's hands trembled, but he didn't let go of Solara. His whole body screamed in fear, but his heart held firm. He wasn't strong, he wasn't trained, but he couldn't abandon her, not after everything. The air grew heavy, silence stretching like a final drumbeat before the storm. Solara looked at him with wide, trembling eyes. In that moment, something inside her cracked. Not from fear, but from something deeper. This fragile human with nothing but his will had chosen to stand beside her, not because of duty, not because of a crown, but because he cared, and that truth shook her more than the enemy's weapon ever could. The soldier raised his arm, ready to strike. Ethan stood his ground, holding Solara close, his voice steady despite the terror. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The room was filled with the sharp hum of the alien weapon. Its glow painted the walls red, casting twisted shadows across the dorm. The soldier's voice was calm, almost certain. "Step aside, human, this is not your fight." Ethan's whole body shook. His legs wanted to collapse, his throat wanted to close, but he forced himself to stay upright. "Maybe it's not my fight," he said, his voice trembling but steady. "Enough. But she's my friend, and I won't let you take her." The soldier tilted his helmeted head, almost curious. "You are fragile. You bleed easily. One strike and you are nothing." Ethan swallowed hard. Fear screamed in every corner of his mind. But when he looked at Solara, her pale face, her golden eyes clouded with pain, he felt something stronger than fear. He gripped her hand tighter and shook his head. "Maybe I'm weak. Maybe I'll lose. But I'd rather stand and fall than watch her suffer alone." The soldier let out a dark metallic laugh. "Then fall you shall." With a sudden movement he charged. The weapon swung downward, glowing bright. Ethan moved without thinking. He grabbed the fallen chair again and raised it to block. The blast hit the metal, sending sparks across the room. The force threw him backward, his body crashing against the desk. Pain exploded in his ribs, but he didn't let go of the chair. "Ethan!" Solara cried, her voice desperate. She tried to rise, but her body was still weak from the earlier strike. Gritting his teeth, Ethan forced himself up. Every muscle screamed in protest, but he stood. His breathing was ragged, yet his eyes were firm. "You'll have to try harder than that." The soldier snarled, annoyed. He struck again, faster this time. Ethan dodged clumsily, the edge of the blast grazing his side. A sharp pain seared through him, hot and unbearable. He gasped, nearly falling, but refused to let go of the chair. He swung with all his strength, the chair crashing into the soldier's helmet. The alien staggered, caught off guard. It wasn't much damage, but it was enough to buy Solara a moment. Summoning the last of her strength, Solara raised her trembling hands. Light burst from her palms, swirling around her like fireflies. Her voice rang out, low but powerful, words in her native tongue filling the room. The energy shot forward, striking the soldier square in the chest. He stumbled back, armor sparking, under the force, but he didn't fall. Instead, he roared, raising his weapon high. With a single blow, he struck Solara across the chest. She collapsed, the glow of her hair flickering dim like a fading candle. Her circlet clattered to the floor, rolling beneath the desk. "Solara." Ethan dropped the chair and fell to his knees beside her. His hands trembled as he lifted her head. She was breathing, but faintly. Her golden eyes looked up at him, glassy with pain. "Why?" she whispered, her voice weak. "Why risk everything? You are fragile. You could die." Ethan's throat tightened, his eyes burning. He held her hand tightly, his voice breaking, but firm. "Because you're not just my roommate, you're not just some alien princess, you're my friend. And humans, we don't abandon our friends." For a moment, time froze. Solara's golden eyes widened, shining with tears. No one had ever said those words to her before, not with such honesty, not without wanting something in return. The soldier stepped forward, weapon glowing again. Pathetic, one fragile human cannot stop fate. But Ethan didn't move away. He positioned himself in front of Solara, arms spread wide, shielding her with his own body. His legs shook, but he refused to kneel. "If you want her," he said, his voice raw, "you'll have to go through me." The soldier raised his weapon for the final strike. And then something changed. Solara's chest heaved, her hands glowing brighter than ever. The words Ethan had spoken, his choice to stay, his refusal to abandon her, sparked something deep inside her. A fire she had buried for too long. Her trembling turned to resolve. Her light, once faint, exploded like a storm. She pushed herself, up, placing one glowing hand on Ethan's back as if to steady both of them. Her voice rang out, strong and filled with fury. "You will not harm him. You will not take me. Not while I still breathe." A wave of pure energy burst from her, brighter than lightning, crashing into the soldier with unstoppable force. The armored figure screamed as the power ripped through him, sending him crashing into the wall with a deafening crack. His weapon fell from his hands, sparking and lifeless. Silence filled the room, broken only by Ethan's ragged breathing and the soft hum of Solara's fading light. Ethan turned to her, eyes wide. She was pale, exhausted, but alive. Her golden eyes glistened as they met his. "You stood when you could have run. You saved me." He shook his head weakly, his lips curling into a faint smile. "No, we saved each other." The room smelled of smoke and burned fabric. Sparks flickered from the broken weapon on the floor. Shattered glass crunched under Ethan's shoes as he staggered, clutching his side where the alien's blast had grazed him. Every breath was pain, sharp and heavy, but still he stood. Solara was on her knees, her body trembling from the light she had unleashed. Her glowing hair dimmed, her strength nearly gone. She looked at Ethan with wide, fearful eyes. "You are hurt," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Your side. You're bleeding." Ethan tried to laugh, though it came out more like a cough. "Yeah, I noticed." He pressed his hand harder against the wound, his shirt already stained dark. "But I'm still here." Solara's heart twisted. Humans were fragile, she had always known that. Yet here was one, standing despite the pain, refusing to leave her even when death stared him in the face. The surviving soldier groaned, slowly rising from the wreckage near the wall. His armor was scorched, his weapon destroyed, but his rage burned hotter than ever. "You think this is victory?" he growled. "You are nothing, human. And you, princess, are too weak to resist? Your fate cannot be changed." Solara's hands shook as she tried to summon more light, but her energy was nearly gone. Fear clawed at her chest. For the first time in her life, she felt truly powerless. But then her gaze fell on Ethan. He could barely stand. His face was pale, sweat dripping down his forehead, his breathing shallow. Yet his eyes, his human eyes, were still full of fire. He stepped forward, placing himself between her and the soldier once more, even as his legs threatened to give way. "Stay away from her," Ethan rasped. His voice was weak but unshaken. Solara's lips parted, her breath catching. She had seen warriors fight with blades of energy, soldiers stand behind armies, rulers hide behind walls. But never had she seen someone like this, someone so fragile, so breakable, yet unwilling to move aside. Her enemies had always told her that power was strength. But Ethan was showing her something else. Courage was strength. Choice was strength. "The soldier snarled, lifting a shard of broken metal as a blade. "Then die first, human," he charged. Ethan braced himself, knowing he had little left. His body screamed with pain, his vision blurred, but still he clenched his fists. He thought only of Solara, how lonely she had looked that first night, how she had whispered about rivers and towers and loss, how her smile had lit the room when she tasted ramen for the first time. He thought of how no one should feel that alone again, and so he moved. Not with skill, not with power, but with pure will. He tackled the soldier with everything he had, the two of them crashing against the wall. The shard scraped his side, cutting deeper, and fire shot through his body, but he held on, refusing to let go. "Ethan!" Solara cried, her voice breaking into desperation. The soldier tried to shove him off, but Ethan clung tighter, teeth gritted, refusing to yield. His strength was failing, his body giving out. But his spirit burned brighter than ever. Something shifted inside Solara then. Watching him, bleeding and broken, yet still fighting, ignited a storm within her chest. She realized the truth. She wasn't powerless. She wasn't alone. Not while he still stood for her. Tears streaked her silver skin as she raised her hands one final time. Her voice shook. but her heart was clear. You will not take him. You will not take me. Not while humanity teaches me what strength truly. His light burst from her palms brighter than before. It wasn't just power, it was fury, love and hope woven together. The wave slammed into the soldier, blasting him across the room. His armor cracked, sparks flying before he finally collapsed unmoving. Silence fell. The hum of energy was gone. The only sound was Ethan's ragged breathing as he slid down the wall, blood seeping through his shirt. Solara crawled to him, tears falling freely now. She cupped his face in her glowing hands. You foolish, stubborn human, she whispered, her voice breaking. Why do you keep standing for me? Ethan forced a weak smile, his eyes half closed. Because that's what we do. We stand, even when we fall. Her heart ached. She pressed her forehead to his, her tears mixing with his sweat. In that moment, she understood what made humans extraordinary. They didn't need crowns, armies, or endless years. Their strength was in their hearts, the courage to care, to fight, to sacrifice. Solara whispered softly, her voice trembling with emotion. I swear, I will not forget this. I will not forget you. And as the rain outside washed the broken silence, she realized the turning point had come, not just in their battle, but in her soul. The world returned in fragments. First came the beeping sound of a machine, then the faint scent of antiseptic, then the heavy weight of his own body, pinned to the mattress. Ethan opened his eyes slowly, blinking against the pale hospital light. Pain pulsed through his side, sharp but steady. He let out a weak groan. You're awake. Her voice was soft, trembling. He turned his head and saw Solara sitting beside him. Her golden eyes were swollen from crying, her silver skin pale from exhaustion. She hadn't left his side, he could tell. Ethan tried to smile. Guess I made it. Solara's lips trembled. Barely. If the healers had come any later, you would not be here. She looked down, her hands clenched tightly together. I should have protected you. Instead, you nearly died for me. He shifted slightly, wincing at the pain. Solara, if I had to choose again, I'd do it the same way. Her head snapped up, eyes shining with both anger and sorrow. Why? Why do humans throw themselves into danger for others, even when it costs everything? Ethan thought for a moment, his gaze steady. Because no one deserves to be alone. Not you. Not anyone. If I can stand between you and pain, then it means I mattered. Even for a moment. Her breath caught. Those simple words struck deeper than any speech, deeper than any vow she had ever heard. On her world, loyalty was bound to crowns, to duty, to fear of punishment. But here was a boy who gave his loyalty freely, expecting nothing in return. For the first time in her life, she felt truly chosen.